Cool.
Amazing. Okay, so I've got the recording started. So we can start when you're ready. You excited?
Yep. All good.
All right. Okay, starting now. Hi, my name is Steven Snyder, and I am one of the organizers for Next Gen Lead. We're really excited to have you part of the program and to have you here with our interview with Diane. Diane is a friend of mine. I met her almost a year ago when we worked together for a sustainable finance conference. And I've been really motivated to follow her journey and her startup's journey because of the great work they're doing to motivate people to think about how their savings and their investments impact the world around us. So I'd love to hear from you, Diane, a little bit about leadership and your background. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen, for having me. I'm excited to be here. So my name's Diane. I'm one of the co-founders of Mattervest. I started Mattervest because I realized through my journey that I wanted to have an impact within the most time that I was spending with my life. So that means my job. And I realized that finance was a huge leverage that we could use that no one was talking about. And that was through a long process of going through that normal route of being a consultant for huge companies where I was like, okay, what am I actually doing with my life, to being United Nations of saying, okay, this is great, this is discussion, people need to discuss, but what's next? What action is taken to being an entrepreneur, first within a water filtration startup and now within Mattervest because of scalability reasons, because finance is really something I'm passionate about, and I really believe that it will move mountains towards the sustainable development that we definitely need to accelerate pace towards. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've been really motivated by your My Money, My Planet campaign. And you guys should check that out. Look at that hashtag and see all of the great photos that are there. Because like this message that you're trying to present really resonates with people.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally different how people talk about money, whether it's in Asia, Europe, or US. And being focused on Europe, we wanted really to have a way in which people could speak about money, which is a taboo topic, in a fun and easy way. So that is why we created that campaign. Of course, it was tough in the beginning because we did not know how to market it, how to make that network effect so that people, more and more people would talk about it, because it's still a sensitive topic. But I mean, because it was packaged in such a way, it did have a lot of effect. We ended up meeting actually two of the biggest banks here in Europe to discuss what was their sustainability agenda. And we did a panel with all of those banks at a festival of ours. And so I really do believe that actually users and people have understood what the problem was and actually identify the problem of finance today, because that's something that not a lot of people do. And through that campaign, we've at least put a finger on that problem and on that issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And where do you want to take that now? Like, what are you guys looking forward to the future with now that you've kind of generated this buzz, you've had these important conversations with these banks? What are you thinking for the future?
Yeah, we're actually thinking, so right now we've just launched actually a platform for Germany and Belgium where we are an unbiased actor towards sustainable finance, meaning that you can come on mattervest.com. If you're from Germany and Belgium, you can actually see where you can invest your money sustainably. And that can either be through digital platforms, and that is fully on your own. So you can compare some of the platforms that are sustainable and that are there. However, if you're not comfortable doing it on your own, because that's a problem that we've seen over and over again, and it's totally normal. Personal finance is very complicated. you can also get the help of a financial advisor. That will not cost you more. It's just a way how products are sold here. And so you will have a guided session where you will understand what your personal financial situation is, and then which products suit you. Because the truth is, yes, we're young. Yes, we don't really think about those things yet, but our pension needs to be, well, we need to contribute for our pension as early as possible. And we need to ensure that the money in our banks is not going towards companies that we don't want to see in our future and that actually destroy our future. So we really want to enable everyone who wants to have their finance to match to their values, and we want to enable them to do that in a very simple way.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm really excited to see how like many people in our age group are talking about this and are realizing that major impact. So it's great to see like the solutions being provided from your company, from other startups here in the United States or all over the world, kind of working to address that problem. So I'm really curious about, this is something we haven't talked about, but what is it that personally drives you to be involved in this? Like why is this such an important topic for you to spend time on and become a leader in this space?
I think I think it's something very cheesy that I think, but I always thought that life was a gift that was given to us, and it's not. We don't deserve to be living or deserve to be here. We have been given that chance. And as for myself, I've been given the chance to live in a country which is, well, wealthy. I don't have a family which is in need of money, so it's something I view it as, okay, I've had that chance. Now let's try to give that chance to someone else, because what we often forget in sustainable development is that honestly, Europe and the US are not going to be the ones that suffer the first. And actually climate change is already affecting the poorest and the most vulnerable of our countries. And as I could see the refugee crisis here, more and more climate refugees are going to come. And it's just going to be also our fault. And I don't think the reaction of people here are going to change to, okay, it's our fault, just let's welcome them open arms. I think the refugees will stay refugees. And so, of course, that is a bigger picture, and that is something that is why I'm doing it. However, I also think that doing is also a bit of a selfish thing as well. So I think doing good feels good as well. So I'm happy to do that as well, because I wake up in the morning knowing why I wake up, and I'm happy to be doing what I do, even if it's risky, because startups don't always, most of the startups don't work. But at least I learn a lot, and at the beginning of my career, I also see it as an opportunity to learn as much as possible, to discover industry and maybe work in that industry later on. But at least learn and get the most of it as I can during my young years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see a lot of like deliberate thinking on your part, that you're planning out how you're going to achieve what you want to do. So you're developing those skills now to get yourself the point. And it's clear that your personal value system is very expressed in the way that you do these things, right? Because you personally believe that you want to make an impact and you want to make people's lives better, and you see this as a tool to get to that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I am someone that shows vulnerability quite easily, and that is maybe a bit too nice at some point, and sometimes that has not, it wasn't that easy because I was just too nice. I was too vulnerable, and sometimes in startups you just need to well, fake it until you make it. And so, and even towards, so I'm right now, I'm only 26. And so when I had some interns who were, well, the same age as I, sometimes I could see some confrontation of why I was being vulnerable, I was being very nice, and they would step on my feet. So that is something, honestly, with leadership, I'm still finding out how to find that balance of not being too aggressive and not being too demanding versus being nice and being, and I honestly think that online being nice and being expressive and communicative is also much more important than offline, because you express through messages. I mean, through messages, you just don't see half of what the person wants to express. So it's a balance that is offline and online, well, difficult for me to meet. But at least I'm clear about why I want to do this. And so that way the motivation still continues to be there even after failures, after some bad conversations. So that I'm happy about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also a really tough thing for me, because I'm a very nice and welcoming person, and sometimes you have to get the job done, and it's hard to be super nice when you have deadlines and you also have to be a task manager and prioritize. So there's a balance of being able to do that. What are some tricks? Like how do you see, what I'm getting at is, like, what kind of advice could you provide to someone listening to this if they have that same sort of problem?
I think I realized that it was too much when I did the work instead of that person, because I didn't want to tell him or her off. So I was like, okay, that's just too much. And so increasingly, I give feedback in a more general way. So I won't point out to that specific mistake, because I don't think pointing out to a mistake, pointing out to something is a good way to go. I think, and that's something we have in our startup, is fuck ups are encouraged, because mistakes show that you want to do more and try a lot. But what I do is I give an overall feedback and I tell the person. So for example, I worked with someone who was really overlooking details. So he would just send an email with different fonts, and I was like, okay, this is really not professional. So instead of going to him and say, okay, just why didn't you look at the fonts? I really took him apart and said, okay, I've seen over and over again that you overlook some of the details. It's important for us to have our external image to be kept as professional. So let's maybe go through this and through what you could improve. And then I basically gave him a challenge of, okay, you should do this. I'm not going to overlook your work, because that might be because I'm also checking all his work. And maybe that's why and so he took that challenge. And I mean, the process not going to change and improve from day 1 to day 2 automatically. It's more of an overall process, but I think people appreciate valuable and genuine feedback, and not pointing out to one specific issue, but more giving a long-term improvement picture, that you show that you want that person to improve, and not just blame that person for what he or she did.
Right. It's a learning opportunity, and you're not trying to be the person's mother. You're not trying to be the person's boss of, cracking a whip. You're trying to help them to grow. And I'm sure,
for sure.
I'm sure that that's very valuable if someone's willing to take that feedback, right? They can see that as a good leadership skill to have. Yeah. So we're getting towards the end of our interview. And this is a point where I like to ask our leaders to share some like words of inspiration or ways to motivate our leaders to sort of challenge themselves and explore the competencies that we're using in this program. So is there any like final words you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, maybe I'll share something that I went through personally. And it's the fact that sometimes it takes a lot of courage for you to, it took me a lot of courage to learn to pause and say, okay, is this about myself or is this about solving the problem? So I would argue, because I've worked so much on a piece of work and that person just ripped apart that work, but for a good reason. So now I would suggest always ask you, when in leadership, when with working with other people, am I discussing this because it's something I've worked on and I valued myself? Or is this for the good of the overall project, of the overall startup, etc.? Because I think leadership is not about growing yourself as a leader, but it's more about ensuring that your environment is in a good situation and that you're taking the whole project forward and not just yourself.
Right. That's really helpful advice, to think about that big picture and not focus on those personal, like the personality gets so much involved, and
Yeah.
that requires a lot of self-awareness, right? To know. So thank you so much, Diane, for sharing with us these things.
No worries, Stephen. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So if people want to learn more about Mattervest, how can they find you?
Just go on mattervest.com. And if you want, I'm totally open to have a conversation. So my email is just diane@mattervest.com as well.
All right, that's a great plug, and I would strongly encourage you, listener, to reach out and check out what Diane is doing. Her and her co-founder are amazing. I'm really happy that I've gotten to meet them. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
You too.